For the practice final number 2, I will start with my virtual machine in the powered off state. I will revert to before practice 1 so that I'll remove any user accounts created from practice 1. After applying the checkpoint, I will delete before practice 1. Now I'll go ahead and start up my Oracle Linux. Once the system starts, I'll take a new checkpoint for before practice 2. They should be roughly at the same point in time for each one. However, I like to keep the names consistent, and also only like to keep one checkpoint at a time. Now that the system is up and running, I've logged into the command line interface. Let me get the size correct. As root. We'll start off by creating a user account for the bad actor. This time it is Jane Doe. Set a password for Jane Doe. Now step 3 in the square box says create a backup folder. Use the make directory command with /backup. Now we're at the point where we would be able to simulate the final skills. Very similar to practice 1. We work as an administrator and we need to lock an account, compress the bad actor's home folder to hacks. So step 1, lock the Jane Doe user account. Using the password command with -L, we'll lock the account. Again, the account is case sensitive, so J and D in Jane Doe must be in uppercase. It reports to the screen. The lock was successful. I'll change to the backup folder. I will now compress Jane Doe's home folder as hacks.tar.gz. So I'll filter it with Z for the gzip compression, C for create, V so I can see what's going to be inputted into the hacks file, and F to specify the file name. Again, F always has to be at the end, and it always has to be followed by the file name. Now the directory that I want to compress. In this case, it's Jane Doe. I will list the contents, verify that the compressed file was created. Install the tree command is the next step. The DNF or yum utility, followed by the keyword install, followed by the package to install. This can take several minutes, answering yes at the end. Once tree is installed, we can move on to making the groups. Use the group add command, followed with the group names. We'll create widgets, payroll, and docs. Once the three groups are created, we'll create the user accounts. User add command with -m, -g, followed by the primary group name for each user. Widgets is the primary group for Greg. I'll follow that with an uppercase G and a comma-separated list of other groups the user is supposed to be a member of. Greg is supposed to be a member of payroll and docs, followed with a space and the username. Notice the comma-separated list of groups do not have spaces between them. The space denotes that we've separated from the -g and we're looking at the username. It'd be really easy to create a user account called docs instead of Greg by putting a space between the comma and the group name. We'll do the same for Silly. Their primary group is users. And the other groups is simply docs. Goat. Primary group is payroll. And again, the other groups is docs, followed by a space in the username. Each user must have a password. Issue the passwd command, followed by the username, entering the password twice. Moving on to the next user. I'll enter the pass1234 for both prompts. I misspelled it one time. Got it that time. For the last user, Goat, passwords are set. I'll clear the screen and I will create the 5 directories. There's actually a total of 6 directories. We create the parent directory work and all of the subdirectories. Make directory /work. I can change into the work directory and make the 3 subfolders invoice, inventory, and docs. I'm doing this slightly different than practice 1. Inside of inventory, I need to make 2 subfolders, so I'll change into inventory. And make the 2 directories inside of inventory. Once you have them completed, use the tree command /work and press enter. Verify that all the folders are created and the subfolders are created in the correct locations. As before, I'm going to wait on setting the ownership of the subfolders until that I have all the files created. I will go to restore the home folder for the Greg account. This is done exactly as before. This time we're using the backup folder instead of archive. Navigate to the backup folder with the cd command. Use the wget command followed with the URL to download the file. Remember, the G is in uppercase. Now that I have the Greg file downloaded, I'll use the tar command with the provided C/switch. I will add in the Z switch to run it through the gzip program, X to do an extraction instead of creation this time, followed with VF and the file name. Once the files are extracted, I will use the ls-l command to look at Greg's home folder. Note the extracted files. The ownership is not correct. Greg does not own the files. I'll use chown with a capital R, switch, followed with the username Greg for the owner, followed with a colon, and widgets, followed with to the path of his home folder. Using the ls command again, I see the ownership has been set correctly. Let's move on to create the bills.txt file inside of invoice. Change to your work directory. Change to the invoice directory. Verify you're in the correct location. Use the Vim editor. Create bills.txt. Once you enter the information, use your colon and WQ to write and quit. The owner needs to have read and write permission. The group has read permissions and others have no permission. Read is a value of 4, write is a value of 2. So to have read and write, you add those together for 6. chmod 6, 4 for read, 0 for no permission. Verify the permissions look correct with ls-l, where you have the RW for group, RW for user, the R for group, and then the last section for others on the system. Create a handbook text file in the docs directory. Changing into docs. Use the Vim editor. Save the file. Now set the permissions. The owner needs read and write. Group has no permission, and others have read permission this time. So if the group has no permission, that's the middle number. So we have 6, 0, 4. We'll verify with the bullet again. The owner has read and write. That's the first RW on the screen. The group has no permission. That's the next 3 dashes. And others have read. So that's the final R. Now that the files are created, the permissions are set correctly, I'll jump up here and set the ownership. I'll make sure I'm in the work directory. I'll use the chown command with the $R, followed with the username, group name. I'll start with Greg and widgets. They should own everything inside of Invoice. The next directory, goat and payroll. Should own everything inside of inventory. Silly and docs own everything inside of the docs folder. Doing a long listing, I see the 3 folders and their ownership set correctly. I'll look inside of docs and make sure that that propagated to the handbook text file. I'll verify the invoice directory and the bills.txt also has the correct ownership set on the file. Now we need to protect the file from any changes. Change into the backups folder. It is spelled wrong in this lab. There's an S on the end instead of just simply backup. And make sure I didn't make a mistake from above. No, there's just an added S on the end. Please ignore that typo on the last bullet. Copy these files into the backup directory. So I've changed into backup. I'll use my cp command to go into my work folder, go into docs, grab the handbook file, and copy it here, designated by the period. I'll do the same thing for bills. I'll go into the invoice directory, grab the bills.txt file, and copy it here, using the ls command to verify they were copied correctly. Creating a symbolic link inside the inventory directory. I'll change directory to work and inventory. Once I'm in the directory, the symbolic link needs to be created. I'll use the link command with the -s, followed with the full path to the real file name. And I'll press enter. Doing a long listing shows the symbolic link, cyan in color, pointing to the full path of the original handbook.txt file. Create a banner message of the day. Use the Vim editor, the Etsy folder, and edit the MOTD file. Insert a banner message of the day. Save the file once your message is typed. Verify its functionality by exiting out. Logging in as one of the user accounts. and making sure the message is displayed on the screen. Once that is verified, go ahead and exit and log back in as root. These are the same questions as practice 1. How much space does the / partition have left? Using the disk free and the -H human readable switch, we see the / directory has 28 gig available, 7.1 gig used, and a total capacity of 35 gigabytes on dev SDA4. How much space does the home folder use? Directory usage command /HS followed by the folder path. It's 92 meg again for this practice. View the contents of the handbook text file. The cat command, the less command, or one of your editors like Vim or VI. What commands could you use to view the IP address of a Linux system? Several different ways. IP address list. ifconfig. Or nmcli. All three commands would be appropriate as an answer here. The routing table, the netstat-r, or simply the route command. View the kernel version, uname-a shows us our 5.4.17 kernel version. Group membership verification. Use the groups command, followed with the username. In this case, we didn't create Smith. I think we created it was silly for this particular practice. But in any case, verifying group membership of any user is simply groups.